live now to Edinburgh, where the coffin of Queen Elizabeth II is carried from the palace of Holyrood House into St. Giles's Cathedral. Before then, Bode Oshosomi is still with us. So, Bode, your thoughts on the UK's economic numbers, worse than expected. Can the UK afford another holiday and 10 days of mourning?
Well, I dare say the economy will probably be joining in the morning, given the situation. But although indeed the impact of these holidays can be felt, the last Jubilee holiday certainly had an impact. But the Jubilee is different in the sense that there were also some positive effects as a result of the boost in hotel tourism, a lot of the wining and drinking and pub, of course, during that Jubilee, which was a bit riotous, gave a little push, while, of course, the fact that everyone was at home brought down the GDP. But with 0.2%, 0.3%, it wasn't really a disaster. Many believe that that the economy will bounce back. This time, we are not likely to see the same type of boost in the tourism or in the hotel sector. This is much more sober. It's a much more sober event, and my sense is, I guess this is something that the UK just has to do. Charles, since is likely to be a much more pragmatic thing, I would expect he's going to do a lot. He's already said he's going to try and trim down the cost of the royal family to the government by reducing the number of working royals. So I'm sure he's very sensitive to the economic situation, and as he goes around to raise morale, of course, he's also going to try and raise the confidence in the economy so that people invest and they begin to spend more and we get a better consumer sentiment. But clearly, one day holiday and with many people in this mourning mood tends to have a negative impact on the GDP growth.
Right. Thank you, Bode. Now, while we're still looking at images live from Edinburgh, will you just give us a quick roundup of whether you think Twitter will approve the Musk proposal?
Well, I think this is quite an interesting development, as Twitter definitely has been looking at Musk for a while. The obvious answer will have been, why can't Twitter just abandon this deal? But there's a $1 billion breakup fee that it wants to be sure it gets. And I don't think they want to walk away from that $1 billion fee. And they want to be sure that there is no reputational damage and other costs that have been borne already do not lead to a situation where it ends up short. So it will be interesting to see how this eventually settles. My understanding is that in a July 15 SEC filing, Twitter already told investors that approving the sale is the only remaining step in satisfying the merger agreement. They reminded investors that the purchase price of $54.20 was a 38% premium to where the stock was prior to Musk disclosing his initial stakes. And Musk has since tried to back out of the deal. If you look at Twitter stock now, it's about $41. The purchase price is still a 30% premium. But in a letter to Twitter on Friday, lawyers for Musk said Twitter's failure to seek a consent before paying $7.5 million to whistleblower Peter Zeko conflicts with the merger agreement. And of course, that's becoming an issue. The whistleblower is going to be meeting with U.S. Senate Judiciary, the committee tomorrow, to discuss these allegations, while Twitter is also holding a special meeting tomorrow for shareholders to vote on the merger. So two very important meetings taking place tomorrow. Also, a newly revealed text sent in May from Elon Musk shows that he was thinking of actually getting out of that deal because of the Russia-Ukraine war, and may have been looking for an inexpensive exit strategy. So this is actually getting very interesting. I just don't see the point of going ahead with this deal. The relationship is just too toxic. Post-merger integration could be a potential nightmare. But I think both parties want to come out as swiftly as possible.
All right, and just to recap, here we are live in Edinburgh, and we are also speaking to Bode Oshosomi, speaking on business news and watching the procession of the Queen's coffin. It has begun its journey from the palace of Holyrood House to St. Giles Cathedral. The coffin is being taken by hearse up the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, and you can see that it is followed by King Charles on foot. The three siblings, the Princess Royal, the Earl of Wessex, and Duke of York, they are all along with him on foot, as well as Prince Anne's husband, Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence. A car behind them will be carrying the Queen Consort Camilla and Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, Prince Edward's wife. Now, a service will also be taking place at the cathedral once the coffin arrives. Bode Oshosomi is still with us, and we are talking business news. Bode, the cost of royal funerals and the like, a burden on taxpayers, a lot of discussion about the expenses that the royal family incur. How do you feel about the taxpayers, and how do you think they feel about the expense of the royal funeral, if it is any kind of problem at all?
Well, my sense is the royal family is a very important aspect of not just British tradition. There is a lot of popularity for the Queen, and if you have been observing her 70-year rule, she was very, very careful to ensure that that popularity did not weigh very sensitive public opinion, and I think King Charles is going to be just as sensitive, and hopefully he won't put a foot wrong. Clearly, also needs to be more sensitive to the costs. King Charles stays at Clarence House. Is he going to move from Clarence House to Buckingham Palace full time? Is he going to put up Buckingham Palace as maybe a museum or an office, or come up with some measure that will suggest a little bit more sensitivity to the costs, which can be quite high. Mind you, the tourism impact of the royal family is also considerable. If you were ever around Buckingham Palace, you would see the thousands of tourists from Asia, the US. They just park there. You know, it's a huge attraction. Buckingham Palace, and the tourism sector is a very important sector in the UK. And I don't have the exact numbers, but clearly they do, the royal family and everything around the royal mansion and the artwork, all these attracts a lot of interest, especially from tourists. So it's a tough question, but clearly one that Charles certainly need to have at the back of his mind as he begins to make his own print, or make his own changes, if you like, to how he wants to run things. Clearly, he does not have the same if you like, emotional capital that Queen Elizabeth II enjoyed. And so he's going to have to give maybe a little bit more back to the British people, either in the form of conceding to a much more affordable royal family. Mind you, there are many other costs apart from the funeral, which is going to be quite expensive. The cost of rebranding the stamps, the currency is all going to be changed, coins are all going to be reminted, many of the institutions like the Royal Post are all going to be rebranded. It's quite a lot, it's quite expensive, and it's not going to happen overnight, but like we all know, the UK economy is mourning at this point in time, so it's just not the right time to do things in an extravagant way, and I expect that they would know that. The Bank of England has postponed its meeting, and I guess they just didn't want any bad news to be coming to the air at the time when they wanted the morale to be as high as possible at this time of morning. But clearly the inflation picture is not encouraging. The freeze on energy bills is a good thing that Truss has just introduced, but that again could have its own inflationary impact. So it's a difficult time, and I would expect that King Charles, I keep calling him Prince, King Charles II, is going to be sensitive to these developments.
Well, some people believe that Britain is standing still at the moment to mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. But then I'm wondering that when reality dawns, that is when the Queen has been buried and then life goes back to normal, will there be added pressure on the Prime Minister, perhaps, to quickly deliver, considering the cost of living crisis that Britain is facing at the moment?
Yes, indeed, the agenda has suddenly been changed. We're all watching these beautiful scenes, listening to beautiful singing at the cathedrals, and all that is perhaps raising the mood, but is a convenient distraction, I dare say, given the issues that are there at hand. Truss has come up with her own ideas, but the detail, I think, is sparse, especially in terms of where the funding is coming from. And the debate was supposed to have been quite hectic, which was suspended in terms of her giving more explanation in terms of the funding for a lot of her plans. But having said that, this is an event that just happens. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. And of course, one has to be very respectful, given the fact that there's a lot of emotions of the people involved. And the Queen is someone that has an appeal, not just in the UK, but even globally. So my sense is 10 days is perhaps worth dedicating to change the agenda or to distract us from the drama that we usually get from Parliament. But you can be sure that immediately it's over, very quickly everyone would forget all the pomp and pageantry, and they will even be asking Charles to perhaps explain. There'll be a lot more attention to Charles than was given to Queen Elizabeth for obvious reasons. Respect for her, which had been earned over 70 years, is not going to be exactly the same thing that Prince Charles or King Charles III is going to be enjoying. But I'm sure Liz Truss is relieved that she has an extra 10 days to put her house together.
As we talk about that attention that is currently on King Charles III, we recall Liz Truss's agenda and vision moving forward relies heavily on foreign investors. How do you think investor sentiment will be impacted by the incoming of King Charles III?
Well, it's too early to say. If you know, the normal tradition is for the monarchy not to not to engage in conversations that could either go for or against in the areas of things like investment. So policy is not the area where they wade in. So if Charles continues in that trend, although I can't say for sure because Charles is obviously much more agile, being much younger than Elizabeth, it's not impossible that he may have his views, but one hopes that he may not want to let them be known. So it all depends on the style that Charles adopts, but markets are not expecting any change in terms of style or in terms of investor attractiveness factors as a result of this. But obviously, they will be listening very carefully if in case Charles begins to wade into industrial policy or issues that obviously are going to impact the market. But hopefully, if he does, it will be things that would attract investment and not things that would drive investment away.
All right. Thank you, Buddy. We're still with you, but for all of you watching live video of King Charles leading the royal coffin procession, the King, the Princess Royal, the Duke of York, and the Earl of Wessex are all in the procession, following behind the Queen's coffin from the Palace of Holyrood House to St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. Now, the Queen's coffin is draped with the royal standard in Scotland and dressed with a wreath of flowers consisting of white spray roses, white freesias, and chrysanthemums. And the hearse is flanked by a bearer party found by the Royal Regiment of Scotland and the King's Bodyguard for Scotland. All right, back to you, Buddy. Thank you so much for staying with us. Still on the markets, it's being said that next week's bank holiday in the UK, declared for the Queen's funeral, could help tip the UK into a recession. The warnings are coming after it emerged that the economy, Britain's economy, grew by 0.2% in July. You are our analyst, Buddy. What do you make of these claims?
Well, I've seen some of the numbers that were presented. We could get as much as 0.5-0.6% on the GDP as a result of this event. But my point is, one, you would see a rebound after, as the morale picks up. Normally, there's that demand that comes quickly after these types of events. So there will be a rebound. And the other thing, of course, like I said, is that there could be a tourism, there could be some income coming from the tourism sector if there's an effort to try and use that to some extent to reduce the damage to the economy. Much unlike, the Jubilee was clearly had a tourism angle to it, like I said earlier, and there was a lot in the hospitality and tourism sector. But consumer spending is now somewhat depressed because of the rising inflation, which reached a 4-decade high of 10.1%. That was in July, and the freeze on utility prices certainly is going to help. But I'm not sure you can do anything about the impact of this event. You obviously have to bury your monarch, and you do this. The last time we did this was 70 years ago. So this is a cost that I think will just have to be borne. I think they will just hold their nose and watch this one pass.
Well, but some people believe that the royal family benefit the UK economy in terms of attracting tourism to the United Kingdom. But there are those that believe that the royal family will lose relevancy and appeal following Queen Elizabeth II's passing. I'd just like to know your thoughts on that.
Well, my thinking is that King Charles will have much harder work to do than Queen Elizabeth. Obviously, in the last 10 years, because of her old age, it will have been very uncharitable to start a big difficult with the royal family. And she indeed put a lot of her life into this. So that emotional attachment, given the loyalty, the commitment, and the brand itself, how she dedicated her life to the brand, nobody really wanted to go after the brand of the royal family while she was alive. With Charles, it's going to be different. And I think Charles would, of course, understand that his PR has to just be spot on. He has to also think of his own strategy. He doesn't have the same kind of, if you like, the same kind of appeal the Queen had, both globally and not just in the Commonwealth, but even outside the Commonwealth. She was very highly respected. It's going to be different for Charles, but that also means that Charles has more work to do. He's 73, and he's not going to have anywhere near the energy that a 26 or 25-year-old Elizabeth had when she came, and the kind of support she was given by the likes of Winston Churchill, and they just simply adored her 70 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the same with Charles. This is the environment has changed. It's not as traditional as it used to be. The younger generation ask more questions. If I were Charles, I would throw some changes in to enhance the popularity of the royal family. But I think we should give the institution the benefit of the doubt. They obviously use the best PR professionals and the best thinking to ensure that this institution continues to maintain the brand appeal that has made it stand out for 70 years. And of course, Charles does not want to be the king that will see it go down. But it's going to be a tough act to follow for Charles, and I can only wish him the best.
Now, we've already seen one or two nations begin the conversation about possibly removing the monarchy as their head of states in their various countries, Antigua and Barbuda being one of them. What do you foresee being the possible impact of the exit of, as you said, a charismatic and beloved queen a new king in the building who may not have had the same relationships that the Queen had earlier, globally, in terms of those states that are still aligned, even the Commonwealth nations that are still aligned with the United Kingdom. What are some of the global economic shifts that may transpire over the next few years?
Well, my sense is that Charles would perhaps focus on the things that really matter. Some of the ceremonial roles that Queen Elizabeth held as the queen of some of these countries, perhaps never see her, maybe just once in couple of years, and she's still the queen of those places. I'm not sure that really matters so much, and it would be easy to let things like that go in exchange for maintaining the trade links and other links that are perhaps much more real in terms of their impact. Clearly, the empire that Queen Elizabeth inherited is not the same as the one she left behind. So we all know that the empire days are completely gone, and Queen Elizabeth presided over the end of that. Nigeria used to be a colony while she was the queen. So I think Charles would also expect that in his own time there will be changes. And I hope he's not going to stand in the way of many of these changes that will come. I think the important thing is to choose your battles for these types of political issues. Get very good advice, know where to hold on, and of course, the important things that you can let go. If the people of these countries are saying they don't want the king to be the king over their colony. There are many places, Barbados, Canada, some of these relations, Australia, where the relationships are very, very strong. The important thing I think that matters is the business and a lot of the diplomatic relationships, which would still be there. The Commonwealth, of course, is something that would be kept as intact as possible. But again, we'll see whether there's any pressure there.
Well, Arise business analyst Bode Oshosomi, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.